I promise you, the sparkly, shiny, perfect version of you is the least interesting one. Tell me your real story. Share with me your messy, wild parts. I'm Lauren, host of Kind of a Mess, showing up to share the stories we all need to hear to know we are not alone on this wild ride. We have an open door policy here. Everyone is welcome. Excuse the mess. Come on in. Introducing Vanessa, wife, mother, businesswoman, children's author, and cancer survivor, whose story is one of resilience, creativity, and hope. From the shock of a Hodgkin's lymphoma diagnosis when raising two young children to years of treatment and recovery, Vanessa has carried immense weight and still managed to transform her experience into something powerful. Through her writing, her advocacy, and her unwavering love for her family, she has created work that helps others navigate grief, separation, and change. Her message? Just try the thing. You've got a dream? Give it a go. Vanessa, thank you so much. I'm so grateful for you giving your time to me today. Your story isn't a simple one, it's layered with a lot of love and hardship and survival and also creation. You were diagnosed young with Hodgkin's lymphoma while raising two tiny little babies. You faced what ended up being years of treatment, surgeries, and hospital stays that meant that you were away from your kids a lot. And through those long nights, you found a way to keep connected to your kids through your writing, which has now turned into a phenomenal series of children's books. So let's start at the start and explain to me. I believe you were 31 when you had two babies and you were given this diagnosis. Tell me a little bit about that time.
It was very mixed emotions of happiness and sadness at the time. You went from cuddling your newborn to adjusting to two children and to introducing a little girl to their little brother and dealing with all the new routines that come of motherhood, and then in the other arm you're holding, I guess, a cancer diagnosis that literally just changed your world. And it was an absolute whirlwind that you don't get to a minute to process because you're still a mum first, and cancer doesn't care that you're a mum, and time doesn't care that you have cancer. You just, I guess, have to go on and adjust with everything that's happening.
Yeah, and that is such an insane set of circumstances to be given, to be balancing all of those things at the same time. Tell me about your diagnosis. How did you find out that you were unwell?
So I was originally diagnosed previously before the birth of my daughter that I had a functional neurological disorder. So that carried on through my pregnancies. So come to when I was pregnant with my son, I started having non-epileptic seizures, and it just became too unsafe to have the baby inside me. I started having night sweats, I had swollen lymph nodes, and the testing that you get, rather than just biopsies, they were operations, and you couldn't go under while you had a baby inside. You couldn't get PET scans because too much radiation. So my son was born a month early, and not long after we began testing, and it was peak COVID time where you weren't in actual doctor surgeries. Everything was done virtually or over the phone. So I remember I was feeding my son and I was trying to play with my daughter at the same time, and the doctor had called, and I could tell in the tone of his voice, he actually just said, "I'm so sorry." And I said, "I've got cancer, don't I?" And I remember him saying, "I'm so sorry," about 100 times, because navigating what the world was then and what normal was in COVID time, and then adjusting to motherhood, and then just having this diagnosis thrown at you, it was all very, very surreal. Like, I felt my world erupted all at once.
Wow, during COVID, that's such a tricky time. I can
Yeah.
imagine you would have felt incredibly isolated to
Yeah, we
be
were.
getting
You couldn't
given.
have visitors at the time. It was at the time where you could only have drive-bys. I think you could have one other person if you needed it. So yeah, it was very tricky times.
Wow, that is insane. So, you saying to the doctor, I've got cancer, haven't I? Was there something in you that just knew?
I had this gut wrenching feeling, just the way that I was feeling. It was a fatigue that I never felt before. My lymph nodes weren't going down. I had night sweats to the point that I was changing the sheets every single day, and I was like, this possibly can't be normal. But you kind of suppress it because you've got a million and one other things to do. Someone needs a stack, someone needs to be fed. So it was always in the back of my mind, and it was in the back of my mind when I was pregnant, but you kind of just ignore it because you've got so many other things going on.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, you are tired when you have a newborn baby, right? Like you're not sleeping, and especially
Definitely.
if you're going from one to two, like that step up is really tricky. You've got another toddler to be looking after. I can completely understand why you would have dismissed that, but really interesting that your intuition also kind of knew that there
Yeah.
was something wrong
Yeah,
at the
that's
time
right.
as well. So you've been handed this awful diagnosis in the middle of COVID when you've got two babies. Um, what was the diagnosis at the time?
So the first diagnosis was that I had Hodgkin's lymphoma, and I was told it's very curable cancer. Everything will probably be done between 3 to 6 months. Like it's very positive outcome. It's very treatable. However, that wasn't the case along the way. So 3 months in, I was due for another PET scan, thinking that everything was going well. I was going to be better. Maybe they can class me in remission. And then I was hit with a second diagnosis of breast cancer. And before I could even process anything, I was rushed in for another lumpectomy, and then I was on more chemotherapy. So it was a lot to handle. I felt like my body was just failing me at the time, and it was brutal.
You were a fairly positive person naturally anyway.
Yeah, I was, and my kids kept me going. Having small children, I guess, kept me fighting because I needed to be their mum. I wanted to be their mum. I didn't want anything to happen to me, but then when I got the second diagnosis, and it was probably my fifth surgery at the time, I was feeling pretty weak. And then as each surgery came on and I started getting weaker and I wasn't getting better, it was absolutely grueling, and absolutely mentally, it was just absolutely draining. And you kind of have the thought process when the prognosis wasn't in my favour, okay, so maybe I do need to process that I may not be here for my children anymore. So that's where the letter started.
Yeah, okay. That's that's hard. I actually can't think of anything worse to be handed
Yeah,
as a mum with little kids that, you know, there is this chance that maybe you're not going to see these two beautiful little humans that you've brought into the world grow up.
correct.
And I'm so sorry that you had to go through that, especially in such a crazy COVID time as well, where you
Yeah,
are just so isolated from your support network.
that's right.
Tell me about the letters. How did they start?
So they actually started, I wrote to my children because I knew that one day they were going to ask more questions. Mila was only 18 months at the time, my son was a newborn. So I knew the questions were going to come eventually, because once I started losing my hair, I looked completely different. So at that point, my daughter did start asking questions to say, what is cancer? And it was kind of the first time I had completely sat her down and explained it to her. I said to her that our body is made up of building blocks, and those building blocks are called cells. And when we build them up, sometimes they fall down, and we get the doctor to help us. So I started writing letters to her and to my son, to that one day they can understand the diagnosis and what I was feeling at the time, because I couldn't explain it to my children in a way that I felt comfortable on the spot. So I prepared myself and I started writing to them to say it didn't matter what mummy looked like, I always loved you. And some of them were apology letters that I couldn't sit on the floor or play with them or dance in the lounge room, or somebody else was doing that for me, which was, I'm so grateful for the community that I had, but it also helped her as a mum because you wanted to be the one to do that. And sometimes it was in milestones that you missed that was the hardest times, that you watched from a distance rather than be present in the moment. So I started documenting this for my children so that if anything and I wasn't here, I'd be with them throughout their lives.
Do you think that it healed a little bit in you as well to be able to express this and get it out?
I think so too. It made my children very emotionally aware during this time. And I think it helped myself to get it out of my system, to know that if something was going to happen to me, they're going to know that I love them. You're always going to question, did I do enough? Do they know that? But I guess the letters were reassurance for me that no matter if they started a new job, if they hit a milestone, or any part that they were having a hard time in life, I always loved them. And I guess that's the message that I wanted them to have, is just I loved them no matter what.
Yeah, absolutely. So tell me about the years that you were in treatment. It ended up being so much longer than what you initially thought. What did it look like?
It was grueling, absolutely brutal. I had chemo for 9 hours. Some was once a week, some was twice a week. I was constantly sick. We were in COVID time. Anytime you got a fever, anytime you got any little sickness, what was a cold for someone was 2 to 3 weeks in hospital. For myself, it was surgeries, and then it was followed by 3 to 4 days in surgeries. After my second double lumpectomy, I actually had complications and I had a blood clot. We had no idea if I was going to see the end of the day, and there was so many emotional tolls in this whole entire battle that it just absolutely broke me. I lost my hair, I lost my eyebrows. The person that stared back at me, she was an absolute stranger. I had no idea who she was. I was always the go-getter. I never sat still, and then all of a sudden I have to slow down. So I felt like every aspect of me changed. And between the chemo chairs and coming home, the side effects of chemo, the sicknesses, and then all the hospital visits. I was reading my kids' bedtime stories from a hospital some nights, and that was probably one of the hardest, because every time we FaceTimed, it was, Mummy, when are you coming home? And as much as you wanted to say, I'm coming home tonight, it was always sometimes weeks in hospital. When I had meningitis, I was in hospital for 3 weeks. I couldn't be anywhere near my children. I couldn't have visitors. So you're very, very alone, but you know that you're fighting for something bigger.
Yeah, you had an amazing purpose to keep you going, right?
Yeah,
Do you
that's for
think
sure.
that it would have been really different if you hadn't have had them?
I think so. I think you've got more to live for when you have children, and especially so young. But I've always been the fighter. My mum will tell you I'm very stubborn, so I'm not one to give up. So I don't like to be defeated, and I guess I get to call myself lucky because I'm lucky that I'm in remission now. A lot of people don't get that in their story, so I do count myself very lucky.
Yeah, that's incredible. Tell me there's a night and you're in hospital, you've had meningitis for a couple of weeks. What are the things that are getting you through? Is it the letters? Are you
A lot
not
of the
letting yourself go down the path of this is too much for me? Or tell me.
Yeah, I guess the books kept me going. By this point, I'd started my third book, because I'm the type of person that, even though my situation was awful, there's so many situations in the world where friends and family had lost loved ones along the way. And I thought, oh my goodness, what if something happens to me? How are my children going to know how to process grief? So I started writing the book on grief, and I guess it's how I wanted them to know that it doesn't matter if I'm here or not. There's always going to be love, and I'm always going to live in their memories and their hearts. And I guess I looked at a lot of situations around the world, and I guess as my children grow, adapted some of them to what we were going through or what we weren't going through, or what our friends and family were going through. There was a few people going through divorce, and they wanted their children to know that they're always loved, and it doesn't matter. Sometimes parents were better off not together. So that's where the book series started. So I had a lot on my mind. But aside from the books, I was like, I need to do something. So during meningitis, I actually started my virtual assisting business to keep me going. And
Okay, hang
yeah,
on. You started
I
a
needed
whole
something.
entire business from hospital.
I did.
What?
I did.
Okay, tell me about this.
Well,
You were
I
you were
needed some.
bored while you were unwell.
I had so much time on my hands. So it was a time of pure survival for me. I needed something to focus on besides the books, because as much as I wanted to help all the children in the world and I wanted my children to know that they were loved, I also needed something to refocus my attention. So I decided that in this crazy time, I would take all my expertise and I would put it into a virtual assisting company where I could do, it started off as admin, but then I started doing business as consultancy and business management. And I thought, do you know what? I'm one person that I was having a hard time finding work from home work because I had cancer, and people needed workers that needed to be reliable. And I totally understood that too. But I thought, you know what? If you're not going to hire me, I'm going to create this for myself. And then I started mapping out what it would look like if one day I can help other mums in similar situations or that don't have the care for their children and have to work from home. I can't be the only person. So that's where my virtual assistant business started growing, and I started hiring other mums and getting more clientele. So it makes me really proud that I am able to help other mums stay home and work from home while they're still navigating their own lives and motherhood.
Yeah, this is something that I'm incredibly passionate about myself. Before I stepped into, I work full time. I'm a communications officer, but before I got the role that I'm in now, I found it really, really difficult to find flexible work.
Yes.
I'm a mum of three. I need the flexibility, but I'm also incredibly good at what I do.
Yeah.
But it was so hard to
Yes.
find someone that wanted to employ me.
Correct.
And I think mothers are just this untapped resource
They definitely
everywhere.
are.
Like
That's
if you want a job done, give it to a busy mum, because
exactly
she
right.
quite often will have the skills. And I think mothers are often unappreciated because they have perhaps been out of the workforce for some time, but so many of us are willing to learn or to take what it to do what we need to make sure that we upskill or are happy to learn from watching somebody else do it. Yeah, so this is, oh, I love this so much that you were able to see a need. And while you were struggling so hard through something like this. So have you still got that business now?
Yes, I do. I still run it at the moment, and I've got 7 mums that work for me and 1 dad.
Wow, that is so amazing. You really are quite a go-getter, aren't you?
I don't like to sit still. No.
Yeah. And this, what an absolute gift. And I think to be able to go through something so hard and then have this empathy for other people that are going through similar, different, you know, but need that flexibility, that have those skills is really amazing. You should be really proud of that.
Thank you. I am.
So tell me, when did things start to get a little bit easier?
So probably once the chemotherapy ended, and I guess after I had the last surgery of the double lumpectomy, and they had just finished taking out some lymph nodes behind my heart, I went to my next PET scan and things started looking clear. So in my mind, I was like, okay, it's getting better. And so that gave me more fight because it was finally positive news instead of another blow of the lymphoma spread here, it's on this side of the body, it's in this part of the body. So it was really great because PET scans gave me such severe anxiety. You could probably ask any cancer patient, and even if they're in remission or they've been cleared, waiting for the results for a PET scan is one of the most scariest things because you don't know what it's going to give you, and you have the fear of things getting worse, but the hope that things are getting better. So it was kind of the last PET scan that I started getting positive results that I was like, okay, I can do this. Like, we're nearly at the finish line, a little bit longer, and like I can put this all behind me. I'd already reached remission once, and then 3 months later I was re-diagnosed. Everything had come back. So I was like, I can do this again. And so it was kind of like the light at the end of the tunnel. And then 3 to 4 months after that, I went for another PET scan and I was finally in remission. So it was probably that last stint that just kept me going. And I think at that point my daughter had just started kindy and my son was at childcare, so there was all these new milestones that I just said, nope, I've got to get to these, and by the time my daughter starts school, I'm going to be better.
Yeah, amazing. Congratulations.
Thank you.
You're an incredible human.
Thank you.
So they're getting a little bit older, and then obviously,
Yes.
as they begin to talk and become more aware, um, how how are you sharing? Do you share everything with them? How do you know which parts to give them and which
I
parts not to?
don't shield them from everything. I did let them see me on the good days and the bad days. On the days that I probably couldn't do as much as what I can, I explained to them why I couldn't, and we found workarounds. We've actually got something that we do. We made time on every Monday, so I had a break from Tuesday and Thursdays on chemo days, that Friday, Saturday, Sunday, come Monday, I was starting to feel better before I started chemo again on Tuesdays. So we made Mondays our day where we would do an activity of their choice, and we still do that today, that we would spend the day together, and they would always look forward to Mondays or pick an activity that they wanted to do, or they start planning as soon as they finish that activity for the next week. So it's... Sorry, I forgot the question.
No, 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 you're fine. So just talking about how you have Mondays for them. So that's oh gosh, no, I can't even remember. Mondays are for them. Oh, how much do you share with them and how much do you not?
Oh, that's right. So we, on my good days, I would be great and I would be fully present and fully there for them. On the other days, I didn't show them all my sadness, but I showed them that it is okay to feel their emotions and that if they want to ask me questions. It was different for my daughter because she was so emotionally mature by this point. She was very in tune with her feelings and she was really good at talking to her feelings, where my son was born into it, so he didn't know any different. So it was a different perspective for him to process. As he got older, he used to say to me, Mummy, your hair's getting too long, go get a haircut, because he's only ever known me without hair and without eyebrows, and he would ask me, what are those? Why do you have these on your eyes? So it was very different in my journey to see it through their eyes. And Mila, she saw a lot of the sadness and the pain, but we also tried to make it as positive and remind her that it doesn't matter what mummy looks like, there's always going to be love. It doesn't matter how mummy's feeling, there's kind of always light in a storm, there's always love after, and that's what I'm always going to feel to you. So I always reminded my children that the next day was a new day and we've got to wake up, we've got to keep going, and we've got to do our days with love.
Yeah, beautiful. And I think there's a lot to be said for appreciating how much kids can take
Definitely.
and how much they understand. And I think as well, especially if your daughter is sensitive, I think it's so nice for her to be validated and
Correct.
have things explained to her. Perhaps at a level, a lot of people will be like, oh, they're a kid, they don't need to know that. But I
That's right.
think that validation in them then gives them this consistency of understanding and
That's right.
having that awareness for their feelings and the
That's right.
feelings of those people around them. And I mean, your case is pretty extreme. But even with some of the other books that you've gone on to write about, separation and grief, um, they're humans and they
Correct.
do need that validation. So I think
That's
that's
right.
really beautiful that you've found a way to connect really big themes to stories that help them learn from such a young age. I think it's something that perhaps we haven't done that well in previous generations.
Yeah.
Um, and tell me about how the series is going now. Where are you up to with it?
So the next few books come out on separation and grief. So they're the next parts of my book. They come out in the next couple of months. So they're just with the illustrator. We're just finalising a few things, and then they'll be ready to go. And then the next series of the books, some of them were inspired by some of our life challenges that we had, especially during COVID, where we'd accidentally have the news in the background, and my daughter would say, "Mummy, what's that?" And I'd have to explain that there's a war breaking out and
Yeah,
why.
I was going to say, give me an example of something that's come up that's made you go, okay, I'm going to write a book about that.
Yeah, so it was because the news was such a scary place. She was absolutely mortified, and she was 3 at the time. And she's like, "Why did that just happen, Mum? Why are they doing that?" So I think because of the experience, and I allowed her to ask so many questions, and I would always answer them with her, she would feel comfortable to ask all of these other questions. Whereas I did find that my son, who wasn't as emotionally mature, would just kind of look at it and just be frightened and not ask the question. Whereas my daughter she was a go-getter. She was like, "I need to know the answer." And I would explain to her that sometimes there are scary things in the world, but I had to explain to her also in that moment that we are in our house, and in our house there is love. So there were all these situations, and it kind of made a mental note that, okay, don't have it on for the children, but at the same time, it's our reality. It is what's going on in the world. So it's about that balance of how much do you wrap them up in cotton wool and how much do you let them kind of experience to understand, because sometimes of the other questions we just dismiss it and we say, "Oh, I don't know," or "Don't worry about it," and they kind of don't ask anymore. So it's about finding that balance for them and explaining it to them in a way that they can understand but not to scare them at the same time.
Yeah, that's so beautiful.
Thank you.
So, how do you go about writing a children's book? How do you get something published? Tell me what your process was.
So I went with Ingram Spark because I wanted full creative control of what I had. I wanted an input in the illustrations. I wanted my kids to be the front cover when I hadn't told anybody that I was publishing a book until I had a prototype in my hand and it got mailed to the house. And my husband said to me at that point, "What is this?" And I was like, "I wrote it." And my
Wow.
kids were really proud to have it on the cover. And I guess the biggest advice that I give people in general is if you've got an idea, just do it. It can only go 2 ways at the end of the day, but at least you tried. So
Yeah.
it's
So
been
did
a very creative process, but
yeah.
I've loved every minute of it.
So tell me step by step though. So did you have the story written and then you went to a publisher from there,
No, so I
or did you
self
pitch it?
Yeah, so I pitched it and then we got a few offers and then I decided to self-publish because I wanted full creative control of the book. So I had a lot of guidance and a lot of help along the way, a lot of constructive criticism on how to turn it into a book. So the way that it started was I was actually having chemo once, and it was just one of those days that I was completely deflated. I didn't want to do anything. I'd usually watch movies or I'd catch up on some reading in chemo or I'd work on my letters, and I just didn't want to do anything. And I had another mum sit down next to me and it was her first chemo session and she was beside herself and it absolutely broke my heart. So I started talking to her, and she had a 3 and a 5-year-old at the time, and she's like, I do not know how to tell my children. So I explained to her how I had explained it to my children. I said, I'm not sure if it's going to work for everybody. And then it was kind of like we went our separate ways. And in the next session of chemo, before she even checked in at the nurse's station, she ran right up to me and she's like, I explained to my children with building blocks and it made it so easy. And she's like, I'm going to tell everybody. And it kind of was my light bulb moment that, oh, I should turn this into a book, because if I can help anybody else, that would be absolutely amazing.
Yeah, that's incredible to share that wisdom from your experience. And then, so that just lit the fire, and then you just
It
started
definitely did.
researching, how do I make this a thing?
Yeah, and then so I started doing my own research. I started contacting people, asking for advice. I joined so many groups on Facebook to see what would happen. I spoke to other people in the industry, and if they are better off self-publishing or going through the publisher, or how do we all work this out together, and we come up with a plan. So it was incredible. It was all very new to me. It wasn't so corporate, so I loved it. So then we started working with illustrators on the pictures, and that was one of the most exciting things, because I got to use my children, and they were so very excited. And for Book Week, my daughter actually dressed up as herself because she was on a book.
Oh, that is the cutest thing ever. Oh my goodness. What pride she must have had to see that.
Yeah, she was.
Oh, I love that so much.
Thank you.
So tell me a little bit about, you've gone through that process. You're still in chemo when you're writing this book and getting it published. How long ago was that now?
So I went into remission in November 2024, but the books started probably in 2022 in October.
Okay.
And it kind of just, I'd never done it before. So there was a lot of rewrites and throwing of paper and pens and frustration. But I always say I'm better at writing than I am better at talking. So I always loved writing letters and cards to people, and anyone in my family would tell you that. So the writing came naturally, but looking at it from a child's perspective was probably one of the hardest things. And when I started talking to OTs and therapists and trying to understand where a child comes from, and looking at my children and how they process the information, was getting that on paper, because I knew how I felt, but it was hard to understand how a child felt. And when my daughter would ask questions, I'd start documenting that, and I would be like, I can use that, or I can't use that. So yeah, it was a great creative process.
Yeah, and I think every creative process, no matter what we're doing, it's like, this is great, this is great. Oh no, this is so
Yeah,
shit, this is so shit. I'm gonna throw it all away
yeah,
and
that's
start
right.
again.
That's right.
I
I
think
actually
that's just,
finished the book, and then I was like, oh, I don't like this, and I started again.
yeah. I think that's it though, like the iterations that come out of that, not failure, but
Yeah,
the changing and the shifts and
that's
the
right.
asking the deeper questions, and to think that you did your research with OTs and started to find out the depth and the perspective
Correct. That's right.
of the kids, like that's what makes it so powerful. Like I'm sure
Correct.
anyone could write a story from their own
Yes, for sure.
experience, but your audience is
That's
fragile
right.
and little and thinks differently to the way that we do. So that's to be
One of
commended. That's so
One of the
exciting.
biggest things that I found with working with therapists and people in the industry was that you can't tell a child how they feel, because that's
Yep.
not how
Okay.
they feel. You have to allow the stories, which is how they're constructed. So for the child to ask questions and to provide an answer that they understand, because that's what they're filled with. They're filled with these questions, not all the same, but the general gist of them. And it gives them the opportunity to ask their own questions. And in the back of each book, we've got ways that they can, one, show love or work through the process of what they're going through. So if they want to draw a picture, because that's, some kids are more creative, or if they want to write their own book, do their own book of love. So there's all these ways that are adaptable to different children, because each child learns in their different ways, rather than us just tell them how they need to feel or what they need to know.
Yeah, beautiful. That's
Thank you.
very, very cool. I love that.
Thank you.
Um, so you've got the book published,
Yes.
2024?
Yes.
Yeah, amazing. And then the others are in the works now.
Correct.
Tell me what does life look like these days now that you're in remission?
The same. With the same chaos as without the cancer. Still normal routines and trying to fit everything in the day. Motherhood doesn't stop. It never
Yeah.
stops. You're always on ready to go every morning. But I love being their mum. I love that I get to be a part of their milestones. And my daughter started school in July, so I was very proud to be able to be there. And with the goal of I didn't have cancer at the time, so it was a very proud moment for me. A lot of emotions for her. I think I cried more, and she told me that I wasn't allowed to cry at the school. So I had to get my tears out before. But the daily routines, and my second child is a boy, so very different to my daughter. I always say my daughter tricked me. She was very such a placid baby, where my son is very go, go, go. So still all the messes of motherhood and routines and all the learning curves as they get older and all the questions that come with it. But it's amazing to be their mum. You love the mess in between all the love. So
Yeah. Does has cancer given you a depth and a new perspective on everyday life?
it definitely does. I probably say yes to going to the park one too many times, because I wasn't always promised the next day. And
Yeah.
getting to the next stage through that whole entire process was such a work, and I missed out on so many things. So I see it as a perspective now that my dishes can wait, my laundry can wait, because I am going to do them. My kids are only little this once, and I only am going to have so many years to take them to the park or do this activity with them. And I guess that's kind of shaped my perspective to say that I'm going to spend the time with them now, because when they're asleep, I can do the rest of it. So
Yeah, that's
it's
cool.
definitely
I like
shaped it.
that. Do you does that come out of a place of love, or do you still feel a little bit guilty?
More love at the moment. It took me a little while to kind of adjust to not feeling guilty, but I had to also make peace with this is my situation. I had an amazing community, and I learned to accept very quickly that regardless, my kids are surrounded by love. They not only feel my love, but they've got all these special people around them that love them just as much. And I guess that taught them a lot as well on who showed up and who's always been there for them. So they formed these like beautiful bonds, and I guess it's made it so much more amazing because we got to share this all together.
Yeah, that's amazing. What's your wisdom for someone that's like you that's in the middle of it at the moment?
I guess as hard as it is to stay positive, but don't give up, and just go each day at your best. You don't have to do someone else's best. Just do yours. No matter what, you are everything to your children, and they're always going to love you, and your best is enough, and you're always going to be amazing and beautiful to your children. So know that you've always done enough.
And I think that's a nice message just to any mum, right?
Yeah,
We
definitely.
we
Definitely.
juggle a lot, and
Yes,
especially
we do.
in modern times where a lot
That's
of us
right.
are working and
Yep,
pushing pretty hard. I think there's a perfectionist standard that we're
definitely.
all trying to live by,
That's right.
which is hard when you've got little ones, right? You've got to
Definitely. And we live in a
do all of
time
the
where
things.
there's a lot of judgment these days on how to be a mum and what makes a good mum. And sometimes we forget that our best is enough, and our best is the best for our children.
Yeah, absolutely. And sometimes just put the laptop away and go to the playground, right?
Correct.
I'm so excited for your book series, and I'm
Thank you.
absolutely going to buy every single one of them.
Thank you.
I am excited to see them. I have had some pretty big life experiences. The
Yeah.
grief is a big one, and then
Yes.
I my daughter is from a previous marriage as well, and I would have loved so much to have had
Yeah.
something like that for her. And I think there's a lot of people out there going through these situations where they don't
Definitely.
know how much to share with their kids or to give
Yeah.
them the stories or the tools to be able to understand it. Where are your books for sale? Where can people get them?
So at the moment, they're all online from your big major stores, Barnes and Nobles, Booktopia. You can purchase them on Amazon, or you can purchase signed copies direct from my website, which is vanessamaiorano.com.
Amazing. I'll put links in as well. So what's next on the goals in life? What have you got coming up?
So the next goals are, I've got so much on the go at the moment with the books, but I'm also concentrating on my virtual assisting business as well. So we've taken on a few more clients. So I'd love to get some mums the help, or even dads, the help that they need to navigate their children. So I'm working on this big empire in two different two different categories, but it's been really good. But my main focus at the moment is to get the books out and get them seen and heard by the right people and the children that do need them. So we hope to have a copy in every library and every school, hopefully by the end of the year.
Oh, I love that. That's such a
Thank
cool
you.
goal. So just to go back to your virtual assistant business,
Yes.
explain to me what that looks like for anyone out there that's like struggling to find work or is a mom and needs the balance. Like how does your business work? How do people find a business like yours and engage with it?
So basically, I do a lot of the go getting work and the business consultancy work. So a lot of it is by word of mouth. I don't advertise a lot because I've had the opportunity and been introduced to the right people where I do find clientele that comes to me where they're struggling to find the right candidates to come into work because their candidates can't come into work. So if I've spoken to agencies which keep me on their agenda to see if I have anything available for them. So as I get new clientele, which means that I can make new hires and we adapt it. So if a mum can only do 10 hours a week and this client needs 30 hours a week, I'd hire 3 people and 10 hours each so that we can fit into everybody's lifestyles because not everybody can do 30 hours a week, and then I look for the correct candidates for that particular business, and if it's not that particular business where they fit, we'll find another one where they do fit.
Yeah, okay, amazing. So do you have like a platform that people submit like a resume to? Is that how it
Yeah,
works?
so when I need to hire, I'll put something out on LinkedIn or I'll put something out on my social media to say that we are hiring. So we've just done a big hire for some new clients that we have on board. And we're just getting the girls trained up and into their positions to start. And then I guess once they're ready to go, we can focus on new businesses and getting more people in, and everybody's winning.
Yeah, because I think sometimes it's easy to get lost in the job search and you're on Seek or you're on LinkedIn
Correct.
trying to find positions what
That's
is
right.
now the old-fashioned way. And
Correct.
it's hard to understand that there are these different new opportunities now and that
That's
they are
right.
more flexible for people, which is what we need, like
That's
all
right.
of
And I think
us.
people stereotype virtual assisting jobs as spam. Like I've had a lot of people comment to say, "Is this job for real?" Because they believe it's too good to be true. And I've had to
Yeah,
explain to them, yes, it is, and happy to have the conversation with you, organise an interview if you're interested, send me your resume, and just, I guess, put their mind at ease to say that these opportunities do exist because we're in a modern world and things don't run like they used to anymore. You don't have to be at a desk 9 till 5. The job can wait until you've got some time because unless it's a really pressing matter, it's the job's still going to get done. So it might not be as conventional as what managers want these days, but it works. And the reason why you're not finding the right candidate is because they can't come into your office. So it's been a real learning journey for absolutely all of my clients as well to see how well this works and how fantastic some of the staff are because they have those flexible timelines and they're happy to go above and beyond when they can. So, yeah, it's been absolutely amazing and a lot of interest and changing the way that people think of a 9 to 5 job or job sharing has been absolutely amazing.
Yeah, and I think even from the business side of things as well, like to keep someone and to have the retention when,
Correct.
there's such strong restrictions around, what the employee is expected to do or where they're meant to be having,
Definitely right.
face-to-face contact hours. It People aren't happy doing that. Like people are
No,
happy when they can have that balance in their life and
correct.
they can get the work done that they need to get
That's
done
right.
within their own life world.
Correct.
Yeah, I think that's huge, and I think that this is definitely something that's going to continue to grow for
Yeah,
you.
for sure.
That's very exciting. Two
Thank
very
you.
exciting
Yeah,
things that you've got going on.
thank you. Thank you. A lot of work, but it's been really good.
Yeah, but you have this drive, but you've also got this depth and understanding of how people are as humans.
Yes.
Um, yeah, there's an awareness there that you've clearly shared with your daughter as well, because I think she's
Yes,
got the same depth as what you do.
she definitely does.
Yeah, I love that. So thank you so much for
No,
sharing
thank
your
you.
story.
Thank you
I've
for having me.
loved
It's been a
hearing
true
it.
honour.
You are an incredible woman,
Thank you.
and I know that there are a lot of people out there that you are going to help by
Thank
stepping
you.
out and sharing. You've been sharing a lot lately, right? You're out in your
Yes,
community as well, being an
definitely.
advocate.
Yes, definitely. Anywhere
Yeah.
we can get the message or anybody that just needs that helping hand at the moment. We don't always get it, but sometimes we realize that our voices are stronger and someone out there needs to hear the message or somebody does always want to help.
Yeah, and I think our villages aren't as strong as they once were. So I
Correct.
think having our voice out on things like podcasts and
Yes.
sharing these things is a good way for the information to get around to empower different people. And I think that's why I'm trying to show up here and share
Yeah,
people's
definitely.
amazing stories of how they've gone through what is really hard and messy times and then
Yeah.
created a message out of it. Look at
Yeah.
you.
Thank you.
It's
Thank
profound.
you.
It really is. Thank you so much for your time. I
No, thank
appreciate
you for
it. I'll
having
put
me.
all of the links to your businesses in our show notes.
Yep.
But yeah, I appreciate you very much. Thanks, Vanessa.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
See ya.
Thanks for stopping by and joining us. I really appreciate your time, your love, and your support. Kelsey's beautiful illustrations can be found on Instagram at kelseygrace.co. We'll see you next time.